It's time to talk. Here we go. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk with Carl E. Long. This is episode 49, and I'm your boy Carl Long, and thank you so much for joining me again on the podcast. Oh, my voice is already kind of going crazy. I got a lot to talk about today. Take a swig of water here. So today, guys, wow. I have been in a different place for as work-wise. My career changed and everything, so I'm not able to be on top of things as I used to be, but I don't get away from the news and what's going on in the world. I make it a point to make sure that I keep up and advise you of what's happening in the world. It's not for me to report the news, but it's to clarify and let you know what's going on. And guys, if you are still someone who does not know what's happening into your country, shame on you. Too much is going on, guys, and this is not easy stuff. This is not easy stuff, guys. This is tough stuff that's going on right now, and it's time for you to wake up. It's time for you to wake up. So today I want to talk about something that really matters to every American. You know what? There's a movement. There is a movement inside the conservative politics that doesn't just want power. It wants to remake the federal government. Not in small ways, but from top to bottom. I mean, part of that is the Project 2025, the one that Donald Trump disavowed. Y'all remember that? Said he had nothing to do with it. But I'm going to show you today how all of that is coming to fruition, how everything that they said in that document is happening. This wasn't some document that just came along when Donald Trump was running for president. These people have been working this way since Barack Obama. This has been a rebuke of Barack Obama being the first black African-American president. And this little group, ever since the Tea Party has been the Heritage Foundation, they have been gearing up all these people. So this is a concerted effort to take over this country, and it's happening. And it's all in the sake of what we call Christian nationalism. Now, I've said many times on this podcast that I am a born-again, spirit-filled Christian Baptist boy, born and reared, and I believe in the authority and the leadership of God in my life, and Christ is the center. But what I'm seeing here from what I'm seeing from my so-called Christian national brothers is nothing more than just evil. It's just evil. And for them to have taken over this country, how they have, and concerted with politics and gotten in bed with politics like they have, it's just not acceptable. And it's ruining this country. It has made me rethink my whole Christian upbringing. Now, the one thing that I will always stay consistent is and if you stay and follow the teachings of Jesus Christ alone, then you're going to get the right teaching. You're never going to fall astray, because Jesus didn't do a lot of this stuff. So you don't have to worry about what he said, because what he said was humane. What he said was for every man and every brother. And what he said is the word that I would always take forth. But what you guys are saying here, this ain't it. This is not it. This is not it. So just to get started, Christian nationalism, just so you have a foundation of what this podcast is about, let's talk about what the definition of Christian nationalism is. I've got it on my screen here, so I'm going to read it to all you listeners. Christian nationalism is a political and cultural ideology that seeks to merge American identity with a specific vision of Christianity. Typically conservative, white, and Protestant. Its central belief is that the United States was founded as a Christian nation, and that its laws, government, and public life should reflect and enforce Christian, as they define them, values. All right. It's not simply about personal faith in public life. It's about using government power to privilege Christianity and enforce moral and social norms derived from it. Christian nationalists often argue that the separation of church and state has gone too far and that America's political decline stems from removing God from schools, lawmaking, and culture. This is what they believe, all right? Now, here are the core beliefs and goals. Number one, America as a Christian nation. They claim the U.S. was founded on Christian principles and that restoring the nation requires returning to those roots, okay? Number two, divine purpose of government. They see political authority as ordained by God to uphold biblical morality. Okay. Number three, hierarchy of faith. Christianity is viewed as superior to other religions, with public life expected to reflect Christian dominance. Right? Okay. And then there is number four, moral legislation. They advocate laws restricting abortion, same-sex marriage, transgender rights, often justified as biblical truths, right? And then number five, rejection of secularism. They oppose the idea that religion should remain separate from governance, arguing instead that secularism undermines morality and patriotism. So basically, they're rebuking church and state. Pretty much is what they're saying. So let's talk about this, how that it is embedded in our politics today. Christian nationalism. Christian nationalism is not an official movement with one leader. It's a network. Now listen to that. It's a network of organizations, politicians, and religious figures that share its world view. Its influence appears in multiple areas. Number one, political rhetoric. Many politicians now use explicitly religious language to frame their campaigns, calling America a Christian nation and saying God chose certain. I mean, this is the hypocrisy on that is just ridiculous. They all stand up and try to say they're Christians. No, I'm sorry. Number two, political policy agendas. Groups aligned with Christian nationalism heavily influence legislation on abortion, LGBTQ plus rights, school prayer and curriculum, contents, books, bans, all of that. They are making that Christian based. I wasn't taught that in church. I wasn't taught that. All right, Project 2025. We're going to talk about that and more. This policy blueprint created by conservative think tanks like the Heritage Foundation calls for reshaping the federal government to promote Christian values, reflecting a major Christian nationalist agenda. I don't agree with any of this, all right? Judicial influence. Decades of work placing conservative Christian judges on federal courts have shifted decisions on issues like reproductive rights and religious exemptions. So, guys, this is a concerted effort. This is a big, giant group of people that are doing this. All right. Grassroots mobilization. Evangelical churches, media networks, and advocacy groups like Turning Point USA, Faith, Wall Builders, and Family Research Council mobilize voters through the language of faith, patriotism, and fear and cultural design. And then there's cultural messaging. Christian nationalist narratives are amplified in media, framing political battles as spiritual warfare between God's people and the ungodly. All right, so they're painting this picture that we're all just demons. If you're a Democrat, we're demons. All right. In short, Christian nationalism isn't just about religion. It's a political project that uses Christian identity as a tool to shape laws, culture, and power structures. It blends religious fundamentalism with right-wing populism, and the reach now extends from local school boards and presidential campaigns. Okay. So that's where we are with that definition of that and what is going on in this country. Now, I'm a Christian, and there's something different about a black Christian and a white Christian. I'm not putting all white people in a bucket by no means. By no means that we're all there. But there is a group, these Christian nationalists that have just came out, and they have basically, with their pocketbooks and their influence, have just ruined the mind of people That's where MAGA came from. And if you look at a lot of MAGA, a lot of them are not so smart. I'm not being condescending. You can look at some clips and see when they're interviewed about certain things, their knowledge base is not up to par on things. They just are looking for a leader and they're following whatever they can follow. Right? All right. I'm going to unplug my smart media here before it interrupts me. I just heard a whimper and I don't want that to interrupt me, so I just unplugged that. So keeping on with that. So that is what they do. And as a black Christian, we were taught right and wrong things in church. And politics served a place in our church because of the civil rights movement. You know, we fought for rights of our people. So we had a place for politics, but it was more of a movement. When leaders come to our church, it is a movement, because anytime you mess with a black person's civil rights, the church, is a strong leader in that. And that's our connection with politics in the church. But as far as telling you that you ain't supposed to do, no, we're not doing that. And if there's any church that I'm a part of that does that, I won't be there anymore. I'm just not going to be there anymore. We do push voting and things of that nature, but they have taken this way too far. Way too far. So I want you to hear a little video of a woman that I played in a previous podcast of a woman. She's a white woman who explains how she's left the Republican Party, and she's explaining what she was taught in her churches. This is not me talking. This is the lady, she's on TikTok, and she explained this, and she got a lot, it went viral on this little post that she did. And I want you to listen to what she says, and then we'll come back on the other side and discuss it. Here we go.
I keep seeing on my post and on a lot of other people's posts that people commenting, why don't the Trump supporters understand or see what we see? As an ex-conservative, I think I can kind of help y'all with that. Understand, if you'd like. First of all, you got to understand this is not about politics. This is about what they're taught. It's about their upbringing. And from a very young age, we were taught that the leftists, that the Democrats were godless. Okay? We were taught that the world is against us. And we were taught that questioning authority is a complete sin. We were also taught that leaders like Trump were sent by God. This is indoctrination. That's what indoctrination is. And you have to understand, it's every day. It's from the pulpit 3 times a week. It's from every day in your home, your mother, your father, whoever you're with that's this way, telling you over and over and reminding you over and over again. If you miss God's plan, your life is shot. If you miss his plan for your life, oh well, I don't know what's going to happen then. They make you feel when you doubt them or you doubt the beliefs, you're betraying them and that God would not be happy with you. It is so hard to break free. The only reason I did is because the truth became too overwhelming to deny. And also, I'm not going to lie, it's because my mother died. I became free when she passed. So it isn't just a matter of looking at the TV and saying, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing that to people. That's not how it is. See, when you're taught every single day, every waking minute is a lesson on how to die to yourself and live for God. And when your pastor tells you that Trump was elected, Trump was sent by God, you believe him. So when we see MAGA acting like this, when we see Trump supporters that will not admit when they're wrong, this is why they're indoctrinated. It is not easy to break out of, but it is possible, and it is necessary. I know it because I lived it, and it took years to break me out of it, And I hate that about this journey, but I'm just so thankful that I did break out of it. Let me tell you about the racism. We were taught that the black population came from Ham, who is Noah's son, one of Noah's sons, and that when Noah got drunk in his tent, y'all can read this in the account of Genesis of the flood, his sons went in and things ensued, okay? We were taught that the black population came from a curse put on to Ham by God for these acts. Now, see, and it is still taught in churches. That is not true. That is a complete fallacy. So, see, it made racism seem more righteous. Get that? But it's a complete lie. But it made it seem more righteous. And it shapes how you see the world. Oh, it's so wrong. Also, I was also taught that gay people were absolutely disgusting. That if you were homosexual, you were completely against God and you would not be going to heaven. They pounded that in our heads over and over again. And I just think back to all the precious gay people and the gay guys at our school that had to be so afraid. And we've all heard, hate the sin, not the sinner. Love the sinner, not the sin. But see, that's really just fear and judgment in disguise. That mindset leads to real harm, children unaliving themselves, and growing up with a life full of just self-loathing. And when you are raised in a mindset that your way is the only way and any other way is unrighteous and rebellious, you were taught that your questioning was rebelling. See? So that's why people are doubling down now, even though they feel it. They feel it, trust me, y'all. They know it and they feel it. They believe that they are not just defending Trump. They really believe that defending this entire system, this entire administration of hate, number one, isn't rebellion, and number two, it's going to get them into heaven and keep them out of hell. That's not what it's about at all. If y'all ever have any questions, if you want me to try to answer them for you, I was in the conservative faith and fundamental Baptist church in the South for 48 years of my life. Christian school from 4K to 12th grade. I got you.
All right, that was very gracious of her to put herself out there like that. But she did. She's explaining what she was taught. What she was taught and how it's so embedded in her that it's hard. She had to wait till her mom died before she could free herself from the thinking that they were taught. So this stuff is real, guys. This is not stuff that is fake. This is real, and this is what we're up against. Listen to this next guy. He has a really good TikTok page, and I can think of the name of him. I think he's called Altitude Aligning or something like that. But anyway, I'll say it after I see his TikTok handle here at the end of this. But let's listen to him because he's telling us how church and politics are happening right now, and he makes a lot of sense. He has a very good page, and you should check him out. So here we go. We'll come back on the other side.
I used to think that the church and politics were two different monsters. I was wrong. They are two heads on the same beast, feeding on your fear and your faith, tearing flesh from your bones while you clap. This one requires you to think and be patient. The politician steals in the daylight and the pastor sanctifies the theft at night. The politician drains the treasury and the pastor tells you to pray for your leaders. The politician builds no roads, no schools, no hospitals, yet funds cathedrals and mosques because he knows that religion is the leash around your own neck. It is a perfect arrangement. The politician poisons you with corruption, and the church sedates you with obedience. The politician denies you food, and the pastor tells you to fast. The politician robs your future, but the pastor says respect your elders. You are chained at both ends, one by fear of the state, the other by fear of God. This is not spirituality or politics. This is slavery in its most elegant disguise. Think about it. The food industry poisons you. The pharmaceutical industry makes money from treating you. That is exactly what the church and politics have perfected. One breaks you, the other consoles you. One destroys, the other distracts. One steals, the other sings over your grave. And you don't resist. You bow, you obey, you tithe, you clap while they got you alive. Instead of storming the palaces, you storm the altars. Instead of protesting, you kneel. Instead of demanding justice, you close your eyes and wait for heaven to do what your hands refuse to do. Tell me, what gospel blesses thieves in office? What kind of faith baptizes corruption? What kind of shepherd trains the sheep to love the wolf? Look around. That mega church, it isn't a house of God. It's a monument of your silence. The pulpit isn't salvation. It's a microphone for the state. The politician buys the pastor's loyalty with contracts and cash. The pastor buys your loyalty with fear of hair. Together, they've mastered the economy of your stupidity. They don't even need chains anymore. They simply need pulpits. And here is the part that should shame you. The system survives because you keep feeding it. You keep voting for thieves and praying for them afterward. You keep funding pulpits while your hospitals rot. You keep begging for revival while your leaders blunder. You're not just a victim, you're the accomplice. So let me say this plain. Politics poisons you. The church sings you to sleep. And you, yes, you supply the blood.
Wow. He's called Altitude Within. He's on Facebook. He's also on TikTok. He has a lot of little sayings. Very smart man. Lots of wisdom. But that made a lot of sense. And let me just keep on saying this over in this podcast over and over. I am not trying to rebuke anybody from their faith or anything like that. But what I would like you to do is to reevaluate your church. Make sure that you're not at a church that is selling you things that are not true, that are not right. Right versus wrong. That's the walk of Jesus Christ. Not right versus left. You got to understand the difference. Study the teachings of Jesus and you will always be grounded. Always be grounded. Not trying to rebuke the rest of the Bible, but people take other parts of the Bible out of context because they don't understand what it means and they don't read the entire thing. But, the book is a book of wisdom, but there are some things that you just have to understand that are just not like that today, and we have to be able to apply that. Many ministers, there are some ministers that are good at applying that sort of thing, but there's some that abuse it as well. So listen to this guy on I call this the Christian Evangelism Rebuke, and he has a little insert in here from Donald Trump talking about religion and where he's going to heaven. I thought this was different. Listen to him and we'll talk about it. Here we go.
As a Christ follower, I've got to say something that's going to come off harsh, I think, to many Christians, probably most. But it's the truth, and I challenge you to correct me where I'm wrong. Rebuke me so that I may be wiser for it. How is it that Donald Trump has had the amount of access to your advice and counsel? So many evangelical leaders. And I'm talking about, here, let's name names because you guys have been out there. I'm talking about Franklin Graham, Pastor Robert Jeffress from First Baptist Dallas, Pastor Jack Graham from Prestonwood, Dallas, Josh Howerton, pastor, Lake Point, Dallas. How is it that Donald Trump has had the amount of access to you guys since 2016, yet he still doesn't know how to get to heaven, doesn't know what it takes to come to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ?
You had talked a couple of weeks ago, you were doing an interview, and you talked about how you hope to end the war in Ukraine because it might help you get into heaven. How does this help? Does this help?
I mean, I'm being a little cute. I don't think there's anything going to get me in heaven. Okay, I really don't. I think I'm not maybe heaven bound. I may be in heaven right now as we fly an Air Force One. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make heaven.
We've seen all the photo ops. This one. How about this one? What exactly have you guys been praying over Donald Trump? For Donald Trump? Probably more like the sermon that Robert Jeffress was able to preach in 2017 on Inauguration Day to the Trump family. Did he preach about coming to know Jesus? No. He talked about how Donald Trump was being used by God, similar to Nehemiah, to build the wall. It leads me to question a couple of things. One, who was using who? Donald Trump saw a voting bloc, and you guys saw, in Robert Jefferson's words, the meanest, toughest SOB you could find to protect this nation. You guys oftentimes have likened Donald Trump to King Cyrus, when you know in your heart he's more like King Nebuchadnezzar. Only Donald Trump has yet to descend to the full depths of his insanity, and we are likely, as a result, to see the implications of that, if not this weekend with the coming demonstrations, then I believe soon, because he's got men whispering in his ear like Stephen Miller, men who are itching to see the demise of the people they perceive to be their enemies. Me, other people like me in this country. I've been told many times in the last several years that I should pray for our president, and I have. I put it out there publicly as an example of what Christians ought to be looking for in the then President of the United States, Donald Trump. What have you been praying for Donald Trump? What have you been praying over Donald Trump? Donald Trump is a man who has been used by Christian leadership in this country, and after 9 years of it, he doesn't know what it takes to get into heaven. Hypocrites, whitewashed tombs, blind guides, serpents. I think many Christians today will have to answer to history for this, and I believe many evangelical religious leaders today will have to answer to God.
And they certainly will, because of that list that he called out. I'm from Dallas, Texas, if you don't know already. I'm from the 214. Robert Jeffress, the biggest church downtown Dallas, First Baptist. That guy, I'm like, what is wrong? And then what really, really upset me the most was Jack Graham at Prestonwood Church. I used to listen to him every Sunday morning while getting ready to go to my own church. He came on early. And I was listening to him. Then I noticed that at the end of each one of those deals, I think I may have ordered some stuff once. He was a part of a foundation called Turning Point USA. And y'all know who that is, right? Dear Charlie Kirk. Yeah. So Jack Graham, the guy who I thought, well, he gave some of the best words, but when Trump came along, all of a sudden his word changed. And I didn't understand it. I did not understand why his word changed. It was like I couldn't even listen to him anymore. And I don't know what happened. I mean, he used to preach the teachings of Jesus and everything, and all of a sudden, everything he was talking about was political. And telling his congregation about Trump, I couldn't take it anymore. I banned him. They even used to have this big Christmas extravaganza, which a lot of people go to, and I understand that doesn't get heavily popular. It was like world famous Christmas deal that they did. They would bring in professional dancers and singers, and it was really huge here in Dallas. But I heard that that's not even heavily attended anymore, and they lost a lot of members. So I'm thanking God that there were some people in there with strong enough minds to realize something went wrong with Jack Graham at Prestonwood Baptist Church. And I think the same thing happened with First Baptist Church in Dallas. Robert Jeffress, people started to leave. That's a good sign of being able to think with your own mind. Don't get wrapped up into this Christian nationalism thing about being a part of the government and the whole bit, because it's not going to end up well. Let me tell you that. All right, so what I want to do today is I want to talk about the view of like Christian nationalist ideas, the view that America is and should be a Christian nation, and that the public law should reflect those beliefs. You know, because that ideology shows up in Project 2025. So we want to go through Project 2025, and I want to show you how this stuff is being done. You know, how the Justice Department, you know, the effect in the political arena, you know, the concentration on authority in the presidency, to remove institutional and all the things that Project 2025 does, and how it ties in to this Christian nationalism thing, and how scary this is. And this isn't about its policy, its personnel, its politics. It's happening now. So stick with me, because we're going to go kind of line by line of some lines I pulled out of Project 2025, and why it should alarm you. It should alarm you. Anyone who cares about democracy, civil rights, and the separation of church and state, because it's going to be crazy, guys. I'm going to cover a few of the 2025 initiatives that are now being implemented. Okay. So, first one I want to talk about is, these are the things in Project 2025, guys, that have been implemented and that are there and that are happening, and they are all a part of this whole Christian nationalism thing, and how they put this thing together and come up with this ideology for our country. And it's happening right now. It is happening right now. The number one is the personnel overhaul. All right. So we've seen all the firings. We've seen all of that, right? Project 2025 emphasizes replacing merit-based civil servants, those are all the people in the D.C. area, with loyalists, and building a personnel database to staff agencies. That centralizes control. It makes policy changes more durable, because the people implementing these rules are politically aligned. So basically, he wanted to get rid of all the civil servants, the people that are not bound by government, but are bound by civil duties with the government. They have civil rights. They're not political. They do the job of the country. He's pretty much knocked all that down by all the layouts that we have, getting rid of the, what do you call them? The oversight, inspectors of all sorts. I mean, this has just been very, very detailed and orchestrated to do that. Number two is the unitary executive and expanded presidential control. Now, the plan leans on a strong view of presidential power to reduce agency independence, enabling the president to micromanage or remove civil servants and reshape regulatory enforcement. Legal experts warn this weakens the separation of church and state. It weakens it, the powers. It weakens everything. All right, number three, dismantling or shrinking agencies and programs. I mean, all of the agencies they've gotten rid of, guys. All of the things that we used to do across the countries, feeding the sick and 100 U.S. I mean, this stuff is crazy. This is what Christians would do? You think that Jesus would stop feeding poor people, giving them water? We would just stop doing that? Who's telling the government to do this? And the Christian nationalists, this doesn't bother you. That's what scares me. This does not bother you. Why not? I don't understand that. Project 2025 recommends dismantling or defunding agencies and programs as it views as liberal. What's liberal? For example, reducing the roles of the Department of Education, EPA, parts of health agencies, and cutting international engagement. Okay, so what's so liberal about the Environment Protection Agency? Don't we all live in the same environment? And what's so liberal about wanting higher education? Conservatives have this thing about higher education, and that people on the left, go to college and we think we're elitists. No, we go to school to learn. And they want to be taught, they want schools to teach conservative values. Why? And they want equal treatment of whatever. I mean, that kind of stuff is debated in colleges, but colleges teach what is right. You know what I mean? They teach kids about life. And if conservative values are a part of that life, and it's one that they want to teach, then they'll teach it. This is crazy. And this also means that there'll be fewer protections for workers, the environment, and public health. Now, the whole Robert Kennedy Jr. thing, oh my God, that is scary to me, because if he doesn't want us to have vaccine, what is the plan, Robert Kennedy? Do you want people just to die? There's something called herd immunity. So much a percentage of this country has to be vaccinated in order for us not to have outbreaks. Why are they doing this to the American people? You have to think about this. All right, number 4 is law and order plus immigration enforcement changes. This is the one that's the most controversial. The plan provides tougher immigration enforcement, expanded detention, deportation tools, and broader use of executive action. Now, this one is probably the most controversial of everything that's happening. Yes, you may have voted for stronger immigration on the borders. I agree with that. I don't think people should be coming over here just because they want to without going through the laws, because it was getting crazy and we were getting a lot of people. I get that. But what you're doing right now, rounding up people in our own country, in the cities, and the way, it's so inhumane. It is inhumane. It is wrong. And it is not Christian-like. And I threw that word in there. Yes, I did. It is not. It is wrong. There's no due process happening with these people. You're doing some things. You're picking up American citizens. You just don't like to follow the law. This could have been done very well and different. It could have been done humane. It could have been handled better than what it is. So, critics say this increases the risk of civil rights abuses, which it has. All right, number 5 is law and order plus immigration changes. The 2025 plan proposes tougher immigration enforcement, expanded detention and deportation tools, and broader use of executive actions to direct law enforcement priorities. Critics say this increases risk of civil disputes. Yes, I said that. I don't know why I repeated it. But anyway, repeated it. All right, number 6, weaponizing the DOJ and regulatory agencies for political ends. The blueprint calls for changing leadership in the DOJ, Department of Justice. Now, this is the scariest part of what they're doing. Because that was our only fail-safe, was the Department of Justice. We already know that the Supreme Court is scary. It's scary. But we had all these district courts, and the Supreme Court has helped deflower them a little bit. But what Trump is doing right now, guys, is scary. And he's trying to take over the Department of Justice. I mean, the FBI, the whole leadership, Pam Bondi, she's supposed to be anti-party. They need to be able to work for all the people, and that's not happening. He has weaponized the Department of Justice system, and we are there. Project 2025 called for it, and we are there. When the Justice Departments follow politics, ordinary checks on power erode. You hear that, Pam Bondi? They erode. All right, so that's one of the things in there. And number 7 is cultural control. Schools, books, and speech. The plan supports removing woke curriculum in books, banning DEI programs, and changing public school standards to reflect conservative and religious values, shifting the culture wars into government policies. All right, so when you go in there and you are rebuking To Kill a Mockingbird, you know what I mean? This is ridiculous, guys. You don't get to brainwash us to believe this is all we can read. No, this is not the country that I live in, and you're not going to do it. And the DEI thing, I don't even want to get into that again, because recently, this is so funny. They've been trying to recruit immigration officers, DEI, ICE officers, I should say. And so many of them were failing the written and the physical test that they lowered the standards. You lowered the standards so you could hire the people? What is that? Isn't that what you accused us of doing for DEI, lowering the standards? We lowered the standards so we could hire black pilots. Yeah, right? We did that just to get them in the air. Are you crazy? But you are doing that. You're lowering the standards to people that can't follow physical tests, don't have the mental capacity to pass tests, and you're going to put them on the street. So that's lowering standards, Trump administration. Oh my God. Yes. That's DEI in its full form that you accuse us of doing on the left. The woke stuff. I tell y'all, this is a comedy of errors, and you've got to stay attention. You have got to pay attention and just not let things go. If your contribution to this whole movement is posting and do that. Repost to your followers when you find something that is correct and needs the word gets out. Do that. Do whatever you can to help stop this. Because, guys, we're not even in a year. There's a lot of fight to happen. And we cannot let our guards down for 1 minute. We can't. Okay? All right, so number 8 is economic and labor rollbacks favoring corporations. Recommendations to limit labor protections, roll back overtime, safety rules, and change tax and regulatory frameworks would shift power toward big business and away from workers and consumers. Why would you want to do that? I don't understand that. This is baffling to me. We're a country for the people. And you're trying to take us to that? With corporations? More in control? We know what happens when that does that. When we have corporations in control, we know what happens. And it's not pretty. Number 9. Narrative and recruitment. Align think tanks, donors, and churches. Project 25 isn't just a memo, it's a network. Think tanks, donors, and sympathetic religious leaders create the political ecosystem that normalizes these ideas and recruits personnel to implement them. Oh, God. This is all in that document, guys. The one that Trump disavowed. Yeah, it's happening right now. Number 10, real world implementation, people in place, policies executed. Reporters and watchdogs have traced many Project 2025 ideas into actual administrative moves, staffing choices, and executive actions, meaning this is not hypothetical. That's why we have to track both the memos and who ends up running the agencies. It's going to be some loyalist in there. All right. So I'm going to read the actual passages from what was actually written in Project 25. This is actually what was written. It says, these are the meditating institutions that serve as the building blocks of any healthy society: marriage, family, work, church, school, and volunteering. Yeah, that's in there. Passage 2. The next administration must take swift and decisive steps to reforge the department into a lean and functional diplomatic machine that serves the president and thereby the American people. Thereby the American people. How? How? I don't get that. Passage 3. Historically, unions were taught to be incompatible with government management. There is a natural limit to the bargaining power of private sector unions, but government cannot go out of business, so demands can be excessive without negatively affecting employee and union bottom line. Oh, what does that mean? I don't even get that one. Now here's the passage about children. Children suffer the toxic normalization of transgenderism and drag queens and pornography invading their school libraries. So that was even though everybody thought that was kind of funny, that was a huge part of their campaign. They did it. They spent millions of dollars on ads about that. And it worked in some places. It worked. Passage 5. Families comprised of a married mother, father, and their children are the foundation of a well-ordered nation and healthy society. The male-female dyad is essential to human nature, and every child has a right to a mother and father. So they're telling you, this is them telling you what the law should dictate. The law is saying you need to be in a household that has a mother and a father. Do y'all want them telling you that kind of stuff? This is what they're proposing. Yes. And number 6, future leadership must address the widely promoted woke culture that has spread throughout the federal government with identity politics and social justice. Advocacy replacing such traditional American values as patriotism, colorblindness, and even workplace competence. What? Oh my God. Now here's the one that is the most scary that was written in there. Passage number 7. Presidential control over the bureaucracy. Here's where Project 2025 lays out its view on presidential authority. The next conservative president must make the institutions of American government once again responsive to the chief executive direction. So basically, even though we have independent agencies, they're saying that everybody needs to go through the president. You know, and I get that he's the head of the country. But the reason our country was built like it was built so that we did not have kings. No absolute rule of power. There were some other people that had this other power if they didn't have it. That's the way it was built on purpose. That's the doctrine of the unitary executive in plain English. It's just unitary executive. Trump is the head of everything. I believe that one person should have direct control over nearly every branch of the federal government. Now, what Republicans don't realize that they're not going to always be in power. What you're giving to them, you're giving to the Democratic incumbent as well. I hope y'all get that. I hope you do. Maybe they do. Who knows? I don't know. All right, passage number 8. Religion and public policy. This passage ties religion directly to the nation's political health. Renewing America requires returning to the Judeo-Christian foundation of our heritage. Public policy should reflect the moral order ordained by God. Yeah. That's not just a cultural statement. That's a call to embed specific religious values into federal lawmaking. Christianity is not the only religion in America. As much as you want it to be, it is not. It is not. And you can't you can't do that. Wow. Okay, passage 9. Education and parental parents. Education is another front where faith-based policy ideas are woven in. The federal government must promote parental rights in education and ensure that schools do not advance radical gender ideology, critical race theory, or other divisive political agendas. In practice, that should mean federal pressure on local schools and districts about what's taught and which books are allowed. Over my dead body. This is what's crazy. Wow. Oh, well. And then finally, this is the clearest statement about presidential control. And it says,
As a Christ follower, I've got to say.
let me play this, I'm sorry. To govern effectively, the president must have the authority to remove federal employees who obstruct his policies. Congress should affirm this principle by statute. That proposal essentially revives the idea of a loyalty test for federal employees, removing independence from career civil servants. Now, we have a lot of independent agencies that run our country. And Trump is basically saying, no, they shouldn't. There's nobody independent. The feds, a lot of the feds are independent. And that makes a great balance and keeping that power dynamic where it should be. But he has successfully done some things that's kind of shaking that up. He's shaking it up a little bit. So there you have. So I want to talk, before we close out, I want to talk about the wrecking the White House and how, if you haven't seen that, the East Wing being demolished like it has been, it really sent something through me, because think about this. If you are a renter in a place, what do renters tell you? What do the owners tell you, the landlord? Hey, they might tell you can paint, but you have to paint it back. They don't like you altering things. That is not his house. That belongs to the people. He's not there for lifelong. Now, I will agree that I've seen many concerts and things at the White House that are in the East Wing, in the ballroom area. It's very small compared, and when they have these concerts in there. So I don't disagree that we needed something larger, but the way he went about it, he lied and said it wasn't going to touch the original structure. And now they're bulldozing the entire East Wing where first ladies have been for years, and all kinds of things. And I'm sure they pulled all the historical artifacts out of there. But the fact that you just took that building and just demolished it with no oversight from Congress or anybody is what is really making us upset. That you just did it. Wow. And we don't know why you just did it. So I'm going to let you listen to a couple of people about the White House. And you tell me what you think, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
As a former White House staffer, I wanted to give my 2 cents on the construction of Trump's new ballroom. Whether you're like me and you worked in those halls and you find it to be a sacred building, or you just care about its rich history, I'm going to be honest, seeing those images of them demolishing the East Wing feels like a gut punch right now. Now, one could argue that there is a need for a larger ballroom at the White House to host larger events. The issue at hand, though, is that Trump did not go through the proper protocols to get this ballroom approved. And instead, in the middle of a government shutdown, decided to take a wrecking ball to the East Wing after promising the American people that his new ballroom would not touch the existing structure. And let's break down the facts about this ballroom. It is going to be a cost estimated of $250 to $300 million that he says he's getting donations from private donors to pay for. You look at the list of some of the donors that the White House has released, it's companies like Amazon, Meta, Comcast, Palantir, the list goes on. And you can't help but think that this just reeks of bribery and corruption. And this is just the latest example of corruption in this administration. You look at some of the other things that are happening, whether that be him accepting a luxury jet from Qatar, him refusing to release the Epstein files and covering up for Lord knows who, or him profiting off the presidency and enriching himself and making millions upon millions of dollars. And I swear to God, my head will explode if I hear one more Republican say, but Obama built a basketball court. No, he didn't. There was an existing tennis court and he painted basketball lines on it. Totally different situations. Can you even imagine if Obama took a wrecking ball to the East Wing to build his basketball court? The Republicans at the time would have been calling for him to be impeached. The White House is referred to as the People's House for a reason. It does not belong to him. And it was modeled in a way that is more modest rather than opulent because we didn't want to view the president as royalty. But obviously this doesn't fit in line with Trump's taste or his views of the presidency. And so he's reshaping it to be what he wants and fit his more gaudy, Liberace-esque style. And I'm not even sure if people realize just how big this ballroom is going to be. It's going to be 90,000 square feet. Now, to put that into context, the main White House structure, the executive residence, is around 55,000 square feet. But if I had to describe the second Trump administration with a metaphor, there's really nothing that sums it up better than this. Trump is demolishing the historic East Wing to put in a gaudy, lavish ballroom so that way he can host private dinners for his billionaire donors who are basically bribing him.
Wow. So did y'all hear that? She used to be a White House staffer. She was a Republican conservative. And, I mean, I feel the same way. Oversight. All you had to do was to go to Congress. There's commissions on arts and things and all that stuff that makes those changes with the White House. We have a commission that does that. But Donald Trump, he thinks he can do anything he wants. And there you go. So listen to this other guy on the White House wreckage. Here we go.
Nobody's mad that there's construction happening at the White House. We should get that straight right now. Nobody's throwing a fit about scaffolding or restoration or updates to wiring systems that probably predate color television. And we all know that the building itself isn't sacred in its drywall. It's sacred in its symbolism. We know that we've lived through construction before, that the Truman gut job in the late 40s rebuilt the damn thing from the inside out. We know that the Kennedys didn't just paint the walls, they curated history inside those rooms. That Teddy Roosevelt basically invented the West Wing, and that FDR had elevators and a pool put in, and that nobody lost their minds. We get it. And supporters of this administration will say that others have done renovations too, and that it's not that different from past projects. Okay. Let's sit with that for a minute. Yes, things have been built before, but this isn't about bricks or permits. This is actually about who is doing it. This is about who is holding that wrecking ball. This is about watching this particular administration, the most hollow, mean-spirited, buck-toothed parody of governance we've ever endured, tearing down the East Wing of the goddamn White House with no blueprint, nothing finalized, no design, not even a public sketch that we could pretend meant something. So it's not just construction, it's symbolic. And the optics of watching Donald Trump, a man whose entire political existence is just a real estate scam dressed up as nationalism, destroy a historic part of the White House while promising a ballroom he hasn't even drawn up yet. It feels like the whole story of his goddamn term. Break it, sell it, lie about it, blame the press, move on before the dust settles. So no one's surprised that he doesn't have a plan. He has never had a plan. But gentle Jesus Christ, the bar is so low that it's underground and we are still tripping over it. And all the while his people will twist every law into a pretzel to say that this isn't technically illegal, that you can start non-load-bearing demolition without a full NCPC review. But let's just ask it out loud. What the fuck are we doing? We're watching a grown man with the emotional IQ of a pipe wrench demolish the east wing of the White House, the visitor's entrance, the First Lady's office, the connective tissue of ceremonial governance, with zero plan, zero approval, and zero understanding of how this looks when you're leading a nation that is already gasping for air. It's the same administration, mind you, that just ordered a private jet to the tune of $170 million for DHS. It's the same administration that has cut school lunches with one hand while signing checks for marble with the other. The same administration that treats public trust like a casino buy-in. Donald Trump is dog shit. His administration is dog shit. His skill set, dog shit. His reading level, you guessed it, dog shit. And if you voted for this and you love it and you think it's all just fine, I won't say that you're dog shit, but you are dog shit adjacent. You're the person holding the little bag. You're the one in the comments section with actually the founders wanted like it's some kind of holy water for fascism. But the truth is this. It's not about a ballroom. It's not about a bulldozer. It's about whether history is a thing we preserve or just more plaster to be sold off in chunks to the highest bidder at a fundraiser at Mar-a-Lago. It's about the fact that we keep mistaking destruction for strength and tacky gold trim for leadership. So no, nobody's mad about construction. We're mad about the same guy that can't spell founding without autocorrect demoing the east wing of the people's house and calling it vision. But when history judges this shit, it will. It won't remember the ballroom. It'll remember the wreckage. And one day, this little clown show song and dance will come to an end. They always do. Pride goeth before the fall. And whatever comes next will bury every remnant of whatever this is thought its glory was. And it will leave it there rightfully forgotten, I promise you. Defiance till death.
All right, he had quite a take on the whole bit. That's pretty good. So, are you just outraged at them knocking down the East Wing? I want a ballroom. That would have been great, but you lied to us. You said it's not going to touch the original thing, and then there are bulldozers at the East Wing. My two best friends live in the DMV area, and I go every year, but I have not went to DC. I said I cannot go in the city. Luckily, they live in the outskirts, in the county area of the cities, so I have not went to DC, to the Capitol, or anything. As many times I've been up there, I said I'll never go as long as you know who, as Whoopi says, is in office. I just won't. I'm just not going to. It's not exciting. I can't. It's really weird. All right, so the last thing here before I close is Steve Bannon talking about Trump and a third term. That makes my blood curdle just hearing it. But listen to what Steve Bannon says, and then listen to this other civics teacher explain how it could very well happen. Yeah. Here we go.
He's going to get a third term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president at 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is, but there's a plan. We had longer odds in 16 and longer odds in 24 than we got in 28. And President Trump will be the president of the United States, and the country needs him to be president of the United States. We have to finish what we started. Trump is a vehicle. I know this will drive you guys crazy, but he's a vehicle of divine providence. He's an instrument. He's very imperfect. He's not churchy, not particularly religious, but he's an instrument of divine will. And you could tell this of how he's pulled this off. We need him for at least one more term. right? And he'll get that in 28.
You're not driving me crazy. I'm trying to understand the coherence of the things you've just told me. On the one hand, you've said the Constitution is fit for purpose. Secondly, you've said that President Trump needs another term, even though the 22nd Amendment makes pretty clear that he cannot have another term.
Why does it make that clear?
Because he's on his second term already.
At some point in time, we will make sure we go through Zanny and define all those terms.
But you will be undermining the spirit of that amendment, even if you find some way around it.
If the American people, with the mechanisms we have, put Trump back in office, are the American people tearing up the Constitution? Would that be tearing up?
Well,
would the American people be going against the spirit of the Constitution, ma'am?
I think yes, actually, because I think what you will end up with is a populist justification for a quasi-dictatorship.
That's not true at all.
That's what it sounds like.
It's not. Trump is a dictatorship. Did you just see the compromises he had to make on the big, beautiful bill? You see the compromises he has to do on everything, on accommodating Zelensky, on what President Trump. President Trump is nothing but a series of negotiations to kind of keep this thing rolling forward, where he's having trade-offs all the time.
But Steve, you've just spent the last 20 minutes telling me we have to smash the other side. There's no room for debate. There's no room for compromise. We must smash them. And now you're telling me this is a negotiation. I mean, that's
no.
I guess that's why it seems to me some kind of tension
First
there.
off, the only way President Trump wins in 2028 and continues to stay in office is by the will of the American people. Okay? And the will of the American people is what the Constitution embodies. And so I think we're going to be in good hands there. We need to finish what we started.
That entire article interviews on economics.com if you want to go and listen to it in its entirety. But yeah, they're trying to go for a third term, and it could very easily happen. The amendment says that he can't, but when you listen to this civics teacher explain how it could very well happen if the Supreme Court gets involved. Listen to this.
So Steve Bannon insists that Donald Trump is not only going to run in 2028, but that he will be reelected to a third term. Here's how that can happen. As you know, I teach civics, I'm a lawyer, and it all comes down to the Supreme Court. So I want you to listen to this. What's going to happen is Trump is going to run, assuming he's still around, and the Democrats are going to file a lawsuit against him, enjoining him, stopping him from continuing with his campaign because it's in violation of the 22nd Amendment. The district court, federal court, wherever it's going to be, is going to rule in favor of the Democrats. The Circuit Court of Appeal, wherever it was filed, is going to affirm that judgment and give the verdict to the Democrats. Say, Trump, you can't run. It's then going to go to the Supreme Court. And in my opinion, what the Supreme Court is going to do, and what Steve Bannon is counting on, and Donald Trump, is them interpreting the 22nd Amendment based upon the historical facts of that amendment, which is that Franklin Roosevelt was elected 4 consecutive times, and that, according to what the Supreme Court Republicans are likely to say, was the thing that the legislature did not want to happen again, is consecutive elections beyond 2. And what they're going to say is that what the legislature and the states decided and wanted by passing the 22nd Amendment was to give the people an opportunity to take a break and reassess that person rather than have some dictatorial thing where someone stays in power consecutively. So they are, in my opinion, the Supreme Court is going to allow Donald Trump, very likely in a 5-4 or 6-3 opinion, with Trump's 3 people plus Alito and what's his name, Clarence Thomas. I don't even want to think of that man. being the people who decide that. And what the Supreme Court says, the Constitution says, is what the Constitution says. So they're going to say the 22nd Amendment, in their interpretation, only applies to 2 consecutive terms. And therefore, since Donald Trump had his first term and then did not serve for 4 years, even though he still thinks he won, and then served another term, not consecutively, he is entitled to run again and have one more term. And then the 22nd Amendment would prevent him from having another term beyond that. Okay? I hope that scares the shit out of you, but that it helps you understand the method to Steve Bannon and Donald Trump's madness.
So what do you think? I have to go and look at that amendment. If it has the word consecutive in there, they're going to go and they're going to be debating consecutive versus, you know what I mean? So it said these are not consecutive. Therefore, we, the Supreme Court, he can run a second term. He's only did 2 terms, but only 1 term. He hasn't done 2 consecutive terms. So I don't know if he's going to try that. But if that is the language, then Congress needs to get in there and get that cleaned up and add an amendment that says 2 or more consecutive or non-consecutive terms in there and see what happens with that. So we need to really find that out, guys. We really need to find that out because that can be scary. I'm going to just check something here. The amendments say about the presidential terms. I'm just getting a quick thing about what it says in what amendment here. 22nd Amendment says no person shall be elected to the office of president more than twice. No person who has held the office of president or acting president more than 2 years of a term which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of the president more than once. In plain terms, a person can be elected president only twice, so at most 4-year terms. If someone becomes president by succession, for example, the maximum, So I don't see the word consecutive in there. But I need to look at the original writing because they'll go back to the original verbiage. You know how they change things up, just like in translations, and see if that word is actually in there. But that could very well happen, guys, and that's scary. And this is a note to you. We ain't gonna be able to do nothing about the MAGA Republicans ever. They're gonna be there. They're going to be there. Some may reform and go over. Some may have enough. Because if Marjorie Taylor Greene can be conformed on certain issues, so can you, MAGA Republicans. But here's the deal. So all of you independent voters that put Trump in there and all of you never voters who never go vote, this is the time where you need to start getting yourself together and know that if this man tries to run for president, you best have your butt out and vote. Otherwise, we're going to go through this again. We're sitting here trying to fight this thing because people wouldn't come out to vote. And then we had the people that went and voted for him thinking, it's just been a big mess. And so we cannot go there again. All right? So that's my message about that subject for today. So, guys, we've unpacked a lot today. Project 2025, the Christian national vision behind it, and the danger of letting one ideology claim over ownership of American government. Now, before I close, let me make sure that we're clear on what Christian nationalism is. Christian nationalism isn't about personal faith. It's a political ideology, the belief that the United States was founded as a Christian nation and that our laws and institutions should be governed by biblical values. It follows that true patriotism and Christianity are the same. We can't do that, guys. We are a nation of different religions, different people. We cannot put that in our country. Albeit that we're Christians, we cannot. I mean, the Great Commission tells us to spread the word of God. Once you've done that, you've done your part. If there's more rebuke from God, that's between God and them. You've done your part. That's what we do. And, in the 1950s, during the Cold War, that message was revived. In God we trust was added to our money, under God to the Pledge of Allegiance. And by the 1980s, the rise of moral majority and the Christian right, those ideas took deep hold in conservative politics. Today, Christian nationalism reemerges through the group shaping agendas like Project 2025. Aiming to merge government policy with their interpretation of Christian doctrine. And that's why we saw the No King rallies across the country this month. People standing. No crowns for democracy. They're rejecting this deal. That's why we did that, guys. Because this country is built on balance. Faith is personal. That's personal. Freedom is public. And democracy depends on keeping them distinct. So if there's one thing you want to take from today's podcast is pay attention to the language. When you hear the words like unitary, executive, or biblical foundations of government, those are not the right words to be put in politics in our country. Those are not the right words. I don't care how religious you say you are. Those are not the right words. Your faith is personal. That's between you and God. That's not an ideology you put on everybody. And when God wanted you to spread the word, he didn't want you to force them to be a Christian. Do you understand that? I know if you are a true Christian, you understand that. So this is an attempt to redefine who holds power and who gets left out. So you got to stay informed, stay grounded, and stay active. Because democracy isn't just automatic, guys. It's something that we renew every day, every generation. And this No Kings rally thing, I'm going to leave with the video on that. That was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful thing, but all that marching and we don't use it for something means nothing. So I hope at those rallies there were people there who are able to see the camaraderie of people, patriots, true patriots that stand together, all different colors, and everybody marching and say, Donald Trump, no. No, no, no. You and all your lackeys, no. The American people, we are the last voice. This is our country. It doesn't belong to Donald Trump and his lackeys. You can't force, and Christians, you cannot force these ideologies on everybody. You can't do it. I know the Bible says something that no one will make it into the kingdom of heaven without going through. I understand that. But all you have to do is present the word. They can decide if they want it or not, and then go on. You don't know everything. We don't know everything. But if it's something that Jesus says, I'm going to be right on it. But I'm not going to take a whole lot of other stuff and how people twist it to make it be theirs. So I wanted to leave a little bit of the No Kings rally about what happened there. And I was so proud. There wasn't a lot of African American support there. And we did that purposely, guys, because we didn't want a lot of trouble. Because if we had been there in masses, then you would have had the cops and all kinds of stuff there. But there was still some of us out there. But we didn't do any organization ourselves. Because if we organize, guys, we show up. So that's what happened there. But I want to thank everybody that did march in the No Kings rally. It was a beautiful thing. Even little small towns, little small red towns were coming out. That's beautiful right there. We got to take our country back. So listen to this on the No Kings rallies from a PBS news station here. Here we go.
Millions turned out across the country today for a coordinated day of protest against President Donald Trump and his administration's policies. Organizers expected more than 2,600 No Kings rallies in big cities and small towns across all 50 states and some European capitals, including Paris, London, Madrid, and Berlin. A similar event in June brought out more than 5 million demonstrators across the country, but this time organizers said the mobilization was even bigger. Today's protests spanned the nation and other parts of the globe. Massive crowds turned out in major cities, including New York, Washington, D.C., Boston, and Chicago. Demonstrators also gathered in tiny towns like this one in rural Virginia and across the country. They all shared a singular message.
Simple words, no kings.
We want to show our support for democracy and for fighting what is right.
Protesters named immigration raids and President Donald Trump's deployment of the National Guard to certain cities among the reasons they came out.
He should not be able to conduct these overreaches of his power, invading cities.
As an immigrant here in Germany, it's really important to me that America was founded on immigrants, by immigrants, and the fact that they are trying to shut that out and rewrite history is a really big deal.
President Trump's allies criticized the rallies as gatherings of extremists. On Friday, House Speaker Mike Johnson said they showed how fringe the political left had become.
If you think about what's going to happen here tomorrow, you're going to bring together the Marxists, the socialists, the Antifa advocates, the anarchists, and the pro-Hamas wing of the far-left Democrat Party. That is the modern Democratic Party. That's where they've gone.
But on streets across America, the crowds were energized. What organizers said was a large-scale exercise in peaceful protest. For more now on those protests, we turn to Robert Weissman, co-president of Public Citizen, a consumer advocacy group that is one of the protest organizers. Robert, thank you so much for being here.
All right, I want to go into his interview. It's pretty long, but there we go, guys. The No Kings rallies. Everybody stay abreast of what's going on. Stay active, stay informed, stay grounded, and know that you need to do your part, guys. This is not playtime. This is not playtime. And when it's time to vote, you better vote. You need to vote. Because, it is way more of us than it is them. But we can't seem to mobilize because we have such a big tent of people. But we need to learn how to come together and take care of this thing and get this whole Donald Trump regime. This has happened in history before. We've had presidents as radical as him that come through. But it'll be behind us. It'll be behind us. It really will be behind us. But we got to knock this thing out. All right. So, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Let's Talk with Carl E. Long. And it's been a pleasure. And guys, if you haven't followed me, please share any of my posts that I put out there on the subject. I do a lot of little small videos of what have you of the podcast. Please share those. Share this podcast because we need to get the word out. And let everybody start doing their part, and making sure that we stand up for democracy and for the direction of our country for years to come. So have a wonderful day. Bye now.